Today on Amazon, we will be discussing the fiscal differences between classes.
The middle class basically is a class that has disappeared from the surface of the country. I'm supposed to be in the middle class. I'm not super rich and I know I'm not poor.
We don't really believe in government. I was reading a newspaper cutting on the internet. It was in 1984. The government promised that by 1986 there will be end to blackout. Where are we now?
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Amazons.
We have learned to fly the sky like birds, and we have learned to swim the seas like fish. But we haven't learned to walk the face of earth like equals and brothers and sisters. Ends the bridge between the rich and the poor. Today on Amazons, we will be discussing the fiscal differences between classes. Welcome to Amazons. Aisha Bimbo.
Bridging the gap.
Bridging the gap.
Employment. Creating avenues of employment would bridge.
In this day and age.
Yeah.
Some people are still below poverty, living below poverty line.
That's
and
true.
the rich are getting richer, I see that, and the poor are getting
poorer.
But really, what is class?
Class is,
when you say class,
it's a social status, not only social status in terms of earning power, social status in terms of economic power, social status in terms of lower and upper, and you cannot find the middle. In this case, the middle is missing. How can we make the lower begin to push towards the middle so they can be closer to the top? That is what bridging the gap means. So,
we've developed so many technology. I mean, right now, so many things are being developed daily. If you think about what used to happen back then, say 20 years ago, the kind of technology that is in place now, why is it that we haven't been able, as a society, let's move away from our society as well, in the world, being able to bridge this gap between the poor people and the rich people? Because poverty has been in existence in time immemorial, as far as I'm concerned. Bimbo.
Why haven't we been able to bridge it? Because the government is not concerned about bridging it. And it's not something that the masses can do. That's the truth. We can't, as much as we want to, we can't. First and foremost, to bridge the gap, to make sure there's little or maybe nothing there, there has to be electricity. Especially in a country like ours, the basic amenities must be available to everyone. Look at small businesses. Let's imagine I want to start selling turkey or fish. I need to have constant light for it to work. If I'm starting that business, I can't be thinking of how much I'll spend on fuel, because usually when people start, they start with as little as just one carton of turkey and grow from there. But growth in small businesses is not possible because we don't have the basic amenities. Another thing is employment. Employment is a serious problem in Nigeria. We have so many people out there who have graduated and can't find anything to do.
So would you say because of lack of employment, that's the reason why we still have that massive gap? Because as far as I'm concerned, in Nigeria, there is no middle class.
No, it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
We're saying if you do not bring the infrastructure, if you do not put it into place whereby people can take the opportunity to better their lot, there's really nothing. You are helpless. We talked about power supply. You have to make housing, employment. Employment has to be created for growth. Housing has to be affordable. Healthcare has to be there.
Of course.
Education perhaps may be free. You do not have all of this. And the people...
I thought we had free education in Nigeria one time, didn't we?
It's the quality of the free education that we're doubting. No, half education is still better than none at all. I mean, in this case, if you say I still have access to education,
but I do not have the best of facilities for the education. As long as the teaching is not compromised, you know.
But Bimbo, you made a valid point when you said, you know what, even when these people are educated and they come out, they still don't find employment.
No, they don't.
I mean, we still go back to infrastructure.
It's really weird. You go to school, you study, you come out of school, and then you go and apply for a job, and they say, oh, we need someone with at least 3 years experience.
And you don't where do you get the experience?
You don't go to school to get experience.
No, you go to get a certificate. If nobody employs you, how on earth are you going to get that experience?
Let's look at taxes, you know, especially in Lagos State now, you know, there's so much noise about you paying your taxes and everything. And, you know, sometimes I laugh because I'm thinking, okay, I mean, if I employ a staff who is on, say, maybe 20,000 naira per month and the percentage of tax he's taking out from his salary, what would he take home?
The point is that governance right now is still about thinking more of the rich and not so much about those below the poverty line. You find that those who pay their taxes regularly, if they are lucky to find employment, the taxes are deducted even before they get their paycheck. The paycheck will not take care of the tax because it's already removed. You get a list of those who are owing big money in banks today. It is those who are not paying taxes, and the government is doing nothing, absolutely nothing about it.
And look at it.
Taxes is meant to create those infrastructures
that we need.
That's you know.
And then look at it from this point of view. We are all our own local governments, aren't we?
Everyone is a local government.
I can count how many times my house, there's no light.
Of course.
NEPA comes once in maybe 2-3 months. So I'm in charge of my own light supply. Water, there's a problem. I buy water. I'm in charge of my own water. The roads are not good. I fix my car more often. So because of bad roads. So really, at the end of the day, if you're taxing us and you're saying it's for basic where is the basic infrastructure when we are also doing the work that you're supposed to do with the taxes?
But you know, as far as I'm concerned, in as much as we know that we have a society that is failing us or has failed us and everything, and the gap is getting bigger and bigger, you know, every day. We'll be taking a short break and we'll be right back. Thank you.
Economic inequality, also described as income inequality, wealth disparity, and income differences or gap between rich and poor, refers to the difference between individuals or populations in the distribution of their assets, wealth, or income. In Nigeria, the gap is so wide that a tiny elite that make up the super rich live charmed lives while millions live in crushing poverty. Recent research showed that poverty in Nigeria is rising with almost 100 million people living in abject poverty, despite strong growth in Africa's third largest economy. Although the economy is projected to continue growing, poverty is predicted to get worse as the gap between rich and poor continues to widen.
There is no state, no country where you now have a gap between the haves and the have-nots. It is bound to happen. But what we are concerned here with is the level at which this gap is. How wide is this gap? Some 20, 30 years ago, we don't used to have this kind of situation whereby the gap would be so much between the haves and the have-nots. But presently, on daily basis, the gap is getting wider, and this calls for a kind of great concern.
Civil rights activist Joe Odumaki believes the poor and low-income earners have basic rights to advance their cause.
Our people should realize that the same blood flows in our veins. The rights that the rich man has, the poor man or woman also wields that power. It is enshrined in our constitution. It is also certain that the rich, the poor, remains the heartbeat for the survival of any entity.
For the poor, it is ominous, but do they really have a way out?
Our economy on this Nigeria is not good at all. But what can we do? Well, we cannot thief. So just manage it like that. But I pray God God help us to make this Nigeria better than before.
The federal government make it follow all the people where they did their way be the oga kwata where we see that now they take care of us, make they know how they go solve the problem, everything go good.
The poor people, the critical mass, as I speak today, you should have self-confidence. Also believe that one can make it. Let depression or even the thought of suicide never get to anyone's imagination. And one thing the poor should have at the back of their mind is that they should realize that it's the same blood that flows in their veins, that flows in the vein of any other person that might be rich. Some people are rich, but they have poverty of ideas. Some people are poor, but they are extremely intelligent.
The question follows as to what the government must do.
And that government should realize it's also enshrined in our constitution that any government that cannot provide for the poor is not worth it. Government must ensure that the poor people of this country get a life. It is worrisome that more than 90% of our population live below $2 per day. And the population, the vulnerable ones, women, children, are the chunk of this. So government must stop agonizing and organize for change.
The burden of poverty obviously is borne by everyone, including the government, who must take responsibility and point the way forward to bridging the gap between the rich and the poor.
Welcome back to Amazons. We're talking about ways and trying to provide a solution on how to bridge the gap between the rich and the poor. Maybe when Aisha, they say a poor man would always dream of becoming a rich man. I wonder what a rich man would dream of becoming.
Becoming richer. That's the thing. But you know what? As we're talking about now in the cities, but let's look at the rural areas as well. These areas are also important to the growth of the cities and the country. What was the main thing that used to happen in rural areas? Farming, agriculture.
Of course.
Agriculture. Now, one of the things that we also need to do to bridge that gap is to create loan, make it possible for these people to get loans, which is happening now in certain areas. And I know they bought fertilizers for all the farmers and all that. If we have the farming, the agricultural sector of this country sorted, then we'll start to see a change, a difference, and a slight decrease in that gap.
The loans made available and the roads to transport their goods from the villages, from the rural areas to the city. It's
less
also
taxes?
Yes.
Because they do tax them a lot.
Aisha, we've got Mr. Hilary Eledu. He's a financial and business advisor, so maybe you can come and tell us how we can bridge this gap. Thank you. Mr. Hilary Eledu, please.
You are very welcome. Thank you for being part of the show.
You're dressed like our president.
I don't know about that.
Take a seat, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. Thank you so much. You're a financial business advisor. You're also a business investment manager and also a human capital manager. Wow. Okay, good. Member of the Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. All right, sir. Bridging the gap. It is one of the biggest problems facing our society today. And it is getting worse. It is getting worse by the minute.
That's correct.
As a financial advisor, what do you think is the root of this?
Well, the thing is, bridging the gap basically of poverty is a universal problem. It's not associated with Nigeria alone.
Very true.
You see the poor people in America, poor people in Europe, poor people in Asia. So it's a universal problem. And to tackle it, basically, it has to be tackled holistically. It's not just to tackle one aspect of it. One thing you should know also is that you always have the very rich and you always have the very poor.
Okay.
But for us to bridge the gap, then we need to take a definite step, which I believe is what we're going to go into at this discussion.
Okay.
And it has to involve the people themselves, then you also have to involve the government.
So it has to be a joint thing that we
It
all
has to
have
be.
to set our mind towards and find ways to achieve it. We always say in Nigeria that there's no middle class, there's no middle class. Really, is it true that we don't have middle class? The reason I ask, sir, is because, for example, let me use this new rave about BlackBerry phones, okay? The poor people can afford it because it's really expensive, okay? But there's a group of people in Nigeria who still have access to these little things, and then we have the people who can probably afford, something better than that. Those people in the middle, don't they fall into the middle class?
Well, the middle class basically is a class that has disappeared from the surface of the country. I'm supposed to be in the middle class. I'm not super rich, and I know I'm not poor. But there are some places in this country I cannot dream of having a home there. Why? Because the cost of getting a home is very high. Okay. And even if I want to get a mortgage, most of the mortgage rate is above 20%. So it's not something that I can afford. So you find out that basically the middle class is fast disappearing. And what you have now really is you have more of the super rich and then the impoverished poor.
So you were saying that poverty is a world issue, and I agree with you. It is, because there's no country that I've been to that I haven't seen that they do have ghettos.
Of course,
I have seen that. But one thing about those countries is that there's an effort. You can see there's an effort by the government to make life easier. Dolapo was telling me about, you're out of a job, there's a little something the government will give you to carry you through until you get a job. You've just had a baby, you can't do anything. There's a little support from the government. Even if you can't do something, there's still a check given to you because you've had a baby. You're poor because of some ailment or the other. You can go on, but you can get particular funding for everything. There's welfare to help people cope through certain parts. So the level of poverty is actually, lesser in those countries. Not that it's not there, it exists, but the percentage is less as opposed to a country like Nigeria.
Yeah, I quite agree with you. Government of the United States of America and even some of the European countries, there is a measure that the government have placed so that even if you are without job, at least you are able to take care of your basic needs.
Yes.
And that is commendable. And I believe that the government of, I will not call Africa third world, developing economies like Africa, we should encourage our government to put in social initiative like that. I believe we have the money.
We do.
And we should channel it to the very poor so that we at least give them a kind of hope. Because I know that we have a lot of talented people in Africa.
Yes.
We have a lot of people that are skilled, gifted. All they need is opportunity to express their gift. And I believe government should start by giving them a kind of safe landing so that even if they are unemployed for a particular reason, at least they can be able to take care of their basic needs.
Okay.
I believe that should.
Okay. Sorry, I want to respond to that. Bimbo said something now about the fact that this governments they've set things in place to be able to sort of like try and balance, this gap. Okay, and you're responding and saying, it's okay and it's possible. But you see, one of the key things that I think is actually fueling this bridging, the class difference is corruption. Now, you want to make available things like Bimbo said about if you can't work, you can go and get income support. If you're sick, you can get sick pay. In a country, for example, I'm using Nigeria, where we are so corrupted, will it work? Really? Won't people try and beat the system? Because even abroad, some people still do that. There are people who are able to work, but because they know that these things is available, they would claim they don't want to work. And some of them go to different boroughs and collect money to do that. But in a country like Nigeria, where it's even difficult to be able to trace people, will it work?
It's for him.
Well, the thing is, I think everything we are going to discuss today, we have to make the assumption that corruption is not an issue. we know it's a problem because
that will be burying our head in sand. I think we have to let
no, what I'm saying is that every kind of initiative you want to suggest, you have to assume that it will not pass through the hand of corruption. Otherwise, we're not going to get any point. So the corruption is there. It's part of the problem. Basically, it's a lot of the problem we have with poverty in this country, like I said, is corruption. Because Nigeria is blessed. We have, apart from oil resources, there are a lot of resources that we have not even looked at. Yes. In fact, I think oil has become more of a curse than a blessing. Yeah. Because before the advent of oil, we have been self-sufficient in terms of harnessing a lot of our resources. Agriculture was contributing about 70% to our GDP. And we have, and people were hardworking. People do not want to, but oil have brought about a lot of laziness. A lot of people want to follow the shortcut to success. And there's no shortcut.
Not from those living below the poverty line, but from those who
even
are
from those that are up there, because they see corruption as a very easy way to wealth. So they don't even want to think about how to, because look, if you are in government and you see that oil is an easy way, there are a lot of other potential in the, we have not even scratched the surface of solid mineral. We have not scratched the surface of agriculture. We have arable land. We have countries that they don't even have the kind of fertile land that we have. And like Dubai was a desert, but we're able to create something out of a desert because the government was creative. They had to think about, okay, this we have oil, but oil will soon run out. So what do we do? So they have to think of a way forward.
The diversification really is a function of government.
Yes.
As a financial advisor and an accountant, having access to loans and facilities by the below the poverty line citizens of this country is non-existent, as far as I know. And also, the institutions, as a financial analyst, advisor, and an accountant, has the institution really addressed this issue of access to loans and facilities for the below the poverty line citizen in order to shore up their own earning power to be able to bridge the gap between the rich and I'm not saying that they should be the gap should be narrow. At least make life meaningful. Yeah. Let the citizens have quality life in their own small, small environment. Is that so difficult?
Well, in terms of those in the middle level, rung of the ladder, our conventional banks are not structured to do that, because the kind of interest and the kind of facility even if they agree to give you a facility, the interest rate is not sustainable. You won't be able to afford that. But for them to even give you a facility, they will demand a lot of collateral.
That's what I'm saying.
And you don't have it. But we have institutions like the microfinance that are set up to do that. Whether they are doing that effectively now, it is left for us to measure.
Some of them are collapsing because the people that took money are not paying back. So, and it goes back to the fact as well, Aisha.
Those who have access to this microfinance
are not the people that need it.
Are not the people that need it. I'll give you another example. There are some housing estates that you say is built for those people we are talking about, below the poverty line. Yeah. If you go there today, those houses have been bought over by those who are, who are above the poverty line. Therefore, there's really no enforcement. If you say this housing estate is built for, what was it called? Abraham Adesanya, for instance, was said to be for those below the poverty line. Can you find any one of them in that estate today?
Nope, you cannot.
But the rich are buying 5, 4, 6 at once, and they rent it to the middle class that is disappearing. So it's a question of also enforcement and a deliberate effort. Deliberate. Not lip service.
I'll tell you what led to that. And that is why the rich will keep getting richer and the poor will keep getting poorer. You see, the rich have a reason why they are rich. That is, they have a mindset, a mentality. They have a habit. The poor also have a habit why they are poor. Why will someone sell a house? Of course, we are assuming that the initial owners of the Abraham Adesanya estate are the poor and the middle class. But a time came when they were willing to sell their property. Why would you want
They
to
know-
sell the
they-
property?
they never got
sorry.
access to
I'm
it.
sorry. What we're saying now is minimum housing. What's it called again? That is meant for the poor.
Yeah.
You start to sell, because when Ibrahim Adesa started selling at 3 million naira.
Exactly.
And it
So
says
are we
for the
saying
poor.
people that are earning less than 18,000 naira a month can afford to bring out 3 million naira to pay for that house?
Well, maybe not at once, but if you have a savings culture, well, because you
How
see,
do you save on 18,000 naira a month? I would love to know.
the thing is this. You
It
see,
was not sold on mortgage.
Now-
It was cash down.
It was cash down. It was
no,
individual selling.
you see, even if it's cash down, you can
When
get
I say cash down, I don't mean bring the money, but it was a check at once. It was not planned to say, you know, from your salary, this
You
is how
can
much we
pay,
would
you
deduct.
can- you
Which are
can
things
pay
that can
monthly.
be done. Like it's been,
Yeah.
it's been done with in all these corporations where for employees. You want to buy a car, they were, you know, you are paying your money into a certain bank, and all banks were doing this. It was not just microfinances. All banks, they were allowing people to, as long as you had a job and you were collecting salary, they would buy the car and deduct the money from your salary every month. Look, the people that need this money, and first of all, I need to ask you, financial analyst, why are we paying 25% interest on loans?
Well, it's the issue of, I think that has to be a regulatory issue. But the banks will tell you that...
Is it not risk?
But the bank will tell you that is the level of risk.
Really?
That, because they
Yes.
factor in a lot of things. Then MPR is there. MPR is at 12%. That is the basis for, that's the foundation. So they are now going to factor all the internal costs to arrive at what is going to be like the prime lending rate. And the prime lending rate is a factor of a lot of things. How they profile you as a risky person. For instance, if you are giving money to a conglomerate, they might give him a much cheaper rate because they believe that they have the capacity to pay.
Back,
But if you are
yes.
giving it to someone that possibly they have a doubt on your repayment capacity, then they will factor the risk because they are taking a risk in giving you depositors' money.
Isn't that
Just know
making
that it's
sure-
not the money of the bank, it's depositors' money.
I understand that, but
So-
isn't that also making sure that the poor remain poor and the rich richer?
Well, you see, that is where, like I said, the government have to create a kind of, for instance, just like in the area of mortgage, you can get banks to give you mortgage for over 20%. You have Federal Mortgage Bank that can give you a mortgage of single digit. But then you have to meet the criteria.
We're going to be taking a short break and we'll be right back. Thank you.
Now we you they talk to.